Good morning and welcome. My name is Bret Newbury, and I am one of a team of worship associates that have the honor of welcoming you today and of serving South Church along with our interim minister, Reverend Susan Suchocki Brown, and director of Lifespan Ministries, Kirsten Hunter. Thank you for joining us this Sunday morning, whether you are visiting South Church for the first time, or returning after an absence, attend as often as possible, or are viewing services online. The time for all ages this morning will be led by Jen Del Deo. After the story, all the kids are welcome to attend our amazing religious education classes downstairs. The music is graciously offered today by Susan Adams, Adam Gallant, and the South Church Choir. Videography assistance is provided by Tim DeLay. And now, Jen Del Deo will make some announcements, followed by the Ministerial Search update from the Search Committee.
Good morning. So first, a reminder that the Pocket Garden Tour Committee will be in the narthex and portico area after worship this morning selling blooms. You can include your name, business name, or the name of someone special you'd like to honor. They can take cash, check, and credit cards. And when you stop by to purchase a bloom, you have a special opportunity to ask about volunteering. They're looking for people to help coordinate cookies. You could help with cookies. I think Kat is interested in that. And for ticket sales. So you can reach out by email at pgt@southchurch-uu.org if you don't catch them in the narthex or portico. Also, the property committee is looking to add a few people who love these old buildings, gardens, and grounds as much as the rest of us. So if you're interested in helping out with some maintenance, building, and grounds projects and connecting with other tradespeople, you should consider being a part of the property committee. They currently meet on the first Monday of each month via Zoom, but are hopeful to move back to in-person meetings soon. If you're interested, please touch base with Jen Leiden, and she'll connect you with the committee. And now, I believe we have an update from our Ministerial Search Committee.
Good morning. I'm Jim Verschuren, and we can hardly contain our excitement this morning. Each of us plan to give you just a short statement of what the highlight about Reverend Ellen Quadras was for us as we went through the search process. And I chose to be first because my highlight was when we first started having a relationship with Reverend Ellen this year, she sent in her ministerial record. And the first thing we do is read ministerial records. Over the 3 years, we read 34 ministerial records and watched sermons from 34 different candidates. And I will say for me, Reverend Ellen's was outstanding and a cut above every other one of the 34. And I knew as soon as I read it, by her honesty, her integrity, the experiences she'd had, the way she shared challenges both in her life and in her ministry, made me say, this is a person we have to interview. And here we are at the end. And I am just delighted that she, with her experience, competence, and temperance, is just the right person for South Church. And I think Alice is next.
Kirsten gave us a wonderful idea for our pre-candidating weekends this year. She suggested that we ask each of our candidates to lead us in a spiritual practice of their choosing. So we all arrived in the sanctuary on Saturday morning of our candidating week, and Reverend Ellen led us through a beautiful spiritual practice that for me, let me gain a sense, let me feel what it would be like to have her as our minister. I think everyone would agree. We had one of the most meaningful hours that I've spent in a long time. So that was a big piece of my choosing this minister. I think Stephen is next.
Thank you, Alice. For me, Reverend Ellen brings broad experience. She's not just a minister, but she has worldwide experience in culture and in technology. She is open and receptive to new ideas, especially our journey into collaborative governance, which we all know is still growing as we go through the process. She will bring a sense of humor, and she is committed to setting boundaries and having self-care time, which we all need to respect. So here's what Charlie Murdoch wrote. Charlie is visiting with his parents out in California this weekend, and so this is what Charlie wrote. What I noticed when we were getting to know Reverend Ellen was that she grasped the concept of collaborative governance right off the bat and was thrilled to discuss the possibilities. She is able and willing to identify and navigate power structures within the systems while acknowledging each individual person's spark of the divine. She cares for the staff, and she works with while seeking to strive for clarity and equality. Reverend Ellen has a broad lens of understanding from an international upbringing while encouraging community outreach as well as congregational in-reach. She has the capacity to be intellectual yet funny, introspective yet fair, set clear and fair boundaries, and while being open and caring. Reverend Ellen will be able to walk with and help guide South Church into the future.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Wilhelm, and the qualities that stood out for me are Reverend Ellen's calm and deeply thoughtful way of being, her ability to be fully present and listen without judgment, and her bright smile and genuine laugh. Reverend Ellen is also a talented musician. She plays guitar and sings and understands the importance of music as a spiritual practice. I'm looking forward to getting to know her better in the weeks, months, and years to come.
I think for all of us, we were kind of taken aback a few weeks ago because we were sitting in the sanctuary here and heard Hillary Clark, who was the worship associate that week, read a long quote from Reverend Ellen that was in the UU. It was a letter or a prayer for white people around anti-racism. So we were all looking at each other saying, oh my God, did something leak? But going forward here, the insert talks about the dates of the candidate week, and we hope as many of you as possibly can have an opportunity to meet her. We'll do that. Tana Clues, who's our board chair, is organizing a team right now that is going to set the agenda and work out the details for that week. So look for additional information in the news flash and in your emails. But thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy meeting her as much as we've enjoyed getting to know her so far.
As we light our chalice here, we invite people watching at home to light a candle or chalice of their own. We light this chalice today with these words from Albert Schweitzer, theologian, musicologist, writer, humanitarian, philosopher, and physician. True philosophy must start from the most immediate and comprehensive fact of consciousness. I am the life that wants to live in the midst of life that wants to live. Please stand as you are able and join me in reciting the mission statement printed in your order of service or shown on your screen for those of you joining us online. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people and inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. On this day in 1963, the USS Thresher was lost while on sea trials after being worked on at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. It was a tragedy for the shipyard and the surrounding community as sailors and shipyarders lost their lives in the accident. It was an awakening for the Navy and the shipyard that things needed to be done differently to prevent such a loss from happening again. While I hope that the vast majority of awakenings follow a less tragic path, I also hope that many lead to doing something different, even if the only thing changed is how the awakened individual thinks. When thinking about my personal awakenings, one sticks out. My parents had raised me to be accepting of people different from myself, including people of different sexual orientations. As a kid, I was hardly aware that there was a real difference. People are people, love is love. It never even registered that I'd named my favorite teddy bear after a family friend who was gay. But then I met a friend in high school. He was just coming into himself and fully admitting to himself the reality that he was gay. He and I were friends. We played football together, we did theater together, and we were roommates for a year. It had never occurred to me before I saw how he was treated that people would actually have visceral, sometimes violent reactions to the LGBTQ community. I had been sheltered in my family's total acceptance. He became a target, and as a friend, I became a target as well. When I accepted him as my roommate assignment without question, I opened myself to being assumed to be gay as well, to the point that faculty became involved and interviewed me to determine if they needed to separate the two gay kids. Some of my other friends, in what they thought was a show of support, took me to an LGBTQ support group meeting during my Thanksgiving break. Even the most open-minded and supportive people around me made the error of association meant more than just friendship. And meanwhile, I could not help but feel, see, and hear how much more my friend was going through and would have to go through in the future than I would ever face. I got but the smallest taste, while he had to deal with the unsupportive parents, a future of coming out to new people that he met, and the potential of bigotry and hate for simply being himself for the rest of his life. This realization, this awakening, made me more sympathetic to the idea that people are not treated the way I was raised to believe they should. It made me more aware of the everyday prejudice around me and within me, allowing me to be extra conscious of how my words and actions may not be as interpreted as I intended, and how internal prejudices can make even well-intentioned acts into something less than supportive. So I stand here today, awakened and more knowledgeable and more supportive from my experiences. And I hope that each of you can face such an awakening as well. Please rise as you are able for our opening hymn, Hosanna in the Highest, number 262 in the gray hymnal.
I'd like to invite any kids and anyone else who would like to come forward and hang it up here for a chancel-side chat. So I've been lifting a lot of heavy weight lately. I don't know if it shows. Do I look any different? Yes? How? Oh, that surprises me. What's different? What?
Your muscles.
My muscles. Oh, do you mean this? Do you mean this? Oh, that's not muscles. So I just like to carry some extra layers because you still can't trust the weather in April. So I have a scarf, and on this side I have a sweater because it's still cold out. Sorry, that probably is confusing. You probably thought I meant like lifting barbells and getting big muscles, right? That's a funny coincidence because that's not what I meant at all. I meant I've been lifting some heavy emotional weight. And so when I listen to the news and I hear about the climate crisis or war in Ukraine or places where people are hungry like Sudan and Afghanistan, it feels really heavy. It's heavy to hold that. And here, a lot of times people share with me that the heavy things that they're holding, kids and parents share the heavy things that are going on in their lives. And it's a gift. It's a gift for me that people share these things, and it's heavy. And I bet that all of you are carrying a lot of heavy weight when you hear about other people that are struggling. And maybe you're struggling with something too, and that adds to your own weight. And so what do we do when we have all this weight that we're holding? What do we do? So actually, since it happened to come up about weightlifting with barbells and bodybuilders, have you seen those bodybuilders that have the great big muscles? And they lift like the bar with the big circle weights on the ends, right? Is that how they get those big muscles? So since that happened to come up, there are some similar kinds of things with lifting weight. Do those bodybuilders hold those weights all the time? Do they walk around carrying them everywhere they go? All the time? Sasha.
They don't carry them around. You could also share the emotional weight.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, that. So bodybuilders, they set those weights down sometimes, right? And when they're not holding the weights, they also need to do some things to take care of themselves, don't they? What might that look like? What do they do to take care of themselves?
Read a book.
Yeah, read a book. What else? Sasha.
Eat healthy.
Eat healthy. Do you think they have to rest between lifting those weights? Yep. Maybe drink some water, all kinds of things. And have you ever watched when someone's lifting those giant weights? Have you ever seen someone standing nearby? Yeah, there's spotters, I think they're called. I don't know much about bodybuilding, but I think that there's often people nearby so that if it's too much, if those weightlifters can't set that weight down, there's someone there to help them with that, right? And so, yeah, like Sasha said, with emotional weight, it's similar. We can share that weight. We can set it down. We can take care of ourselves in lots of ways. There are lots of tools that we have to take care of ourselves. And then, does a weightlifter get those big muscles by just picking it up once? No. What do they have to do?
They have to walk really, 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 really hard.
They do have to work all those reallys hard. And do they start with the biggest weights? No, what do you have to do? What do you do?
Start with a medium weight.
Yeah, start with smaller weights, and then you keep adding on. Yeah, they build it, right. And they pick it up, they put it down, they pick it back up, and they keep doing that, and their muscles grow. And with emotional weight, sometimes we end up with the big weight all of a sudden, right? And hopefully we have the people there to help us hold it. And that's one of the really nice things about being in this community, is that we get to help other people hold emotional weight. And when we have emotional weight, we can have other people help us hold it. And kids, can you think of something we do downstairs that sounds similar to that? Ben.
Finishing my book.
You're finishing your book.
Check-in.
Check-in. What do we do when we check in downstairs?
Do rosebud and thorn.
And what does that mean for someone who doesn't know what rosebud and thorn is?
You share something good, and then something good that's coming up, and then something bad.
Yeah, we share things with each other. And what do we do when it's not our turn to share?
We listen to the person who's speaking.
Yeah, and that is weightlifting. And when we're doing that regularly all together, we're building muscle. But what's the kind of muscle we're building? Say it real loud. Emotional muscles. What about that muscle that's right in the middle of our bodies? What's that big muscle that beats all day long and all night long? Say it again.
How?
Our heart. And so when we keep doing it, eventually we're going to walk around looking like this. And so let's go downstairs and lift some weights and do some other things. It is now time for us to help support all the good work and programs of the church. Donations may be made in person, online, by mailing a check to the 73 Court Street offices, or using the Venco app. During the month of April, our collection will be shared with Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or CASA, of New Hampshire. CASA provides a voice for abused and neglected children and youth, advocating on their behalf so that they can thrive in safe, permanent homes. Please give as you are able. The offering will now be gratefully received.
precious day.
I invite us into some time of meditation and prayer. The first thing is, let's be ever so thankful to a search committee that worked so incredibly hard, gave so much of time, energy, and feel so excited about the possibilities ahead. I hope you all are as excited. It is a wonderful time and opportunity, and I do hope that you'll avail yourself in every way possible to meet Reverend Ellen during her candidating week. As a minister who went through this, meeting you all is the most precious and special part of that week. So avail yourself of it, and thank you to the search committee. Blessings and blessings heaped upon you. I had a realization this past week that April 5th was my 30th ordination as a UU minister. How did 30 years go by? I did my math 3 times to make sure that So, ministry is something that we grow into and something that we share with congregations. We are not ministers in and of ourselves. It is in our relationships with you all and our relationship with the larger Unitarian Universalism, but more with the universe that we celebrate when we have our anniversaries. Spring is coming, the glorious weather, the beauty that we see when we look out these windows, the sun that shines in. For all these, we are ever, ever so gracious. Today is Palm Sunday. It is a day when we pause to remember the prophet Jesus and to reflect on all that he had done in the past and all that he left. And so in your prayers, I ask you to reflect on the learnings. I ask you to hold Ron's brother in your prayerful thoughts. Ron had to go to Virginia, a 15-hour ride. His younger brother is in a mental health crisis, and Kenny has no family down there, and Ron got in the car and headed down to be with him. So hold them both. And now is a time for you all to come forward and express your prayer concerns. And I ask you to just think of what it is that you're holding in your heart, what it is that you would like to express, what it is that you need us to hold for you, and know that you are held in love and you are held in care. And I would invite you to come forward, if you choose to light a candle of joy and or concern. Those at home, please write in the chat if you have something to share. And those of you in your pews, please write on a card if you have something to share that we should know about. And I would invite you now, if you wish to come forward to light a candle. And this morning we will do that in silence. know that you're not alone. Come find us if you need someone to talk to. The two women who were down here are pastoral associates, and they're available to talk to at any time, as are any members of this congregation. Palm Sunday, Awakenings, another truth. The theme of awakenings is so appealing this time of year. Spring is springing, flowers and leaves change on a near daily basis. The insects are beginning to hatch. The birds are busy and noisy. We can rise earlier to daylight and sit out in the evening until twilight. And many of us are engaged in the April Awakenings exercise that Jen Del Deo put together for us too. It is enlightening. And now I want you to lean in, for I have another truth. Not all awakenings are great. Not all awakenings are wonderful. Awakening to the reality that we have not been taking care of ourselves physically, and my spouse challenged me to say this to you all, and that you might need to make that long put-off appointment, and in part I am speaking to you men of a certain age who need to find out your PSA levels, and to women too, who must have our annual mammograms, and those of us who must diet and watch our blood pressure. Not all awakenings are great. When we awake to the reality that the relationships we are in are not healthy, or the job, or that our career needs a major overhaul, or a move to downsize or add more space is needed. Awakening to long put-off projects, clean out closets and shelves, awakening to the terrible news of ongoing conflict and war in Ukraine and the loss of life, awakening to being steadfast and committed to a spiritual practice, or making an appointment with a therapist or with me to come and talk about some of the issues that might be on your heart and mind. Awakening is not always daffodils. It's hard work. A colleague of mine, Reverend Helen Cohen, wrote in a Lenten reflection manual, "In our individual lives, change comes slowly, haltingly, grudgingly. Although we may feel deeply the need to discard old habits and tired patterns, still they clutch at us, gripping and crippling our tentative new steps, freezing us in movements that we once found comfortable, but which we have now outgrown. However painful and limiting, the old ways seem at times safer than the uncertain paths ahead." And she continues, "And then one day, spring is here, no longer to be denied. Leaves and blossoms have all burst out and no longer fear the frost. And we dance fully and freely, enjoying movements and rhythms that before we could only vaguely imagine. Oh, splendid awakening." And as we approach Palm Sunday today and Easter week, I was thinking just how much Jesus had one of those really difficult awakenings. No more wandering around, healing and grabbing a few converts. No more preaching on the mount and trying to feed the masses. No more parables, stories of wisdom couched in common daily experiences. No more trying to convince the people that the kingdom of God was here and was within their grasp if they would but do justice, love, kindness, and walk humbly and love one another as they loved themselves. No more running from place to place, being accused and questioned by authorities who had abused their positions and power. No more, no more. He woke up, had an awakening, and as I prepared for a Palm Sunday service, I was reminded what just a hard awakening it was. He chose to confront those in the temple who had perverted the oldest traditions of Judaism by making it near impossible to bring a sacrifice to the temple, not only on Passover, but daily. And he overturned the tables in a show of the beginning awakening to the reality of the end of his ministry and of his life. He went on to sit and reflect on all that he knew was going to happen and transpire in that coming week. And he sat under a fig tree, and he was said to curse it because it was not bearing fruit. But in actuality, it was not time for fig tree to bear fruit. This fruiting was to be something in the future months. He wasn't cursing the fig tree because it wasn't bearing fruit. He was cursing that his end time and his death were coming, even though others were not ready for it, nor perhaps he either. And at that time, he also told those listeners, heaven and earth may pass away, meaning you can't even predict what will happen. You can't even predict what will happen. But I'm going to tell you something. My words, my lessons will not pass away. And this prediction has come to be true. And that began his week of active awakenings. A grand entry into Jerusalem at Passover time, a bold and brazen grand gesture mocking the Roman leaders who dressed in splendid array, who strode in on magnificent steeds, and whose presence was announced with blaring horns and brass bands. And Jesus came in humbly. At the same time, on the back of an ass or a colt. It's hard to get a clear translation on which creature it was. And that's why Bret, our worship associate, didn't bring in either this morning, right, Bret? And Jesus came into the city dressed in his peasant clothes. He was met by crowds of people with hordes of followers and interested bystanders who put down palms to make it easier for him to ride in, who laid down their cloaks for him to have if he chose, who did not come in dressed in that grand array that the others did. He came in, led joyfully through the city to the home of a rich and influential man who put Jesus and his apostles up in his guest house and prepared the Passover feast for them. His grand entry was noted by those, and it was not appreciated by those on the other end of town with their magnificent array and grand display. And it marked the beginning of the end. And he had to be stopped before he became even more of a threat to the Roman rule and the institutions that would not change, that he was begging them to change by changing to care for the widow, to comfort the children, to help the imprisoned, to clothe those in need, to feed the hungry. They ignored his teachings. They ignored his way of being, asking them to be better humans. They ignored it. Jesus went through his week of awakening knowing that one of his closest friends and advisor, Judas, would be leading the arresting soldiers right to him, that we consider an act of betrayal. Jesus went into the week even knowing that Peter, another of his friends and apostles, would deny him not once, not twice, but 3 times out of fear for his own life. Jesus went into the week knowing that the Pharisees, who long had been plotting his end, and Pilate, the Roman overseer of Jerusalem, would know his death at that end of that week. Pilate, whose reign was at risk because of Jesus' followers and his revelations of oppressions and misgovernance, and Jesus' prophetic and revolutionary teachings, which was endangering the status quo and was pretty close to assuring a revolution if he was not stopped. Jesus still did not retreat from his tough awakenings. He tried in his last days at the temple during the Passover meal, while sitting and praying before his capture at Gethsemane, to teach as much as he could, to tell more stories, or parables as his teachings are called, to model that the Passover meal was a time of remembrance and respect and community gathering. Jesus tried to model praying when in distress, and to model staying present to all the mess and chaos and pain that was swirling around him, and who awakened to the reality, and though sad and grieving and frightened, to trust in the loving source at the center of the universe. There are many, many lessons for us in Palm Sunday. And this upcoming week, called by our Christian friends and neighbors Holy Week, the ones I outline above, plus I would add, the story of Jesus, his teachings, his lessons do transcend time and centuries. His life as teacher, healer, prophet, leader, revolutionary, troublemaker, friend and lover of humanity remain today as an example of selfless giving. In the history of Passover, early Jerusalem, early Judaism, never forget that Jesus was a Jew first and foremost. It was only many, many years after his death that Christianity began. And so also we can learn about the history, the beginnings of Christianity, the study of the Bible, which can be quite fascinating, with some of the words and language and thoughts and stories and translations. Was it a colt or was it an ass? Much of that has relevance even today, and the human and relational aspects of the universe are important to reflect on as well. So I'm going to invite you to turn to your pewmate in front of you, behind you, beside you, and take a moment to talk about the concept of awakening and sometimes painful realities that awakening elicits. I will ring the chimes to start and to stop. Turn and talk. May you be inspired to love more, share more, spend more time getting to know one another and understanding the deep and rich history that we are a part of at this church. And we now have our closing hymn, number 18. Please rise as willing and able.
What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss and takes away the pain of my soul, of my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down beneath my sorrow's ground, friends to be gathered round, oh my soul, oh my soul, friends to be gathered round, oh my soul. To love and to have friends, I will sing, I will sing. To love and to have friends, I will sing. To love and to have friends, who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end, I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end, I will sing. And when from death I'm free, I will sing, I'll sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing as joyfully throughout eternity. I'll sing on, I'll sing on. Throughout eternity, I'll sing on.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
You are poised in an exciting time in the life of South Church. We will be working together in these next few months to bring on Reverend Ellen, and we will have a good leave-taking and a really good welcoming. Enjoy this upcoming week, and I urge you to reflect upon the week and the hope of this coming week that our Christian friends are feeling, for they believe that in spite of his death by crucifixion, that there was a renewal of his spirit, and his love never ever stopped being present. Our love for one another never ever stops being present. Go in peace, be peace, and bring peace into everything you do. May it be so.